Last week I covered what I believe to be the 10 most underrated bosses in the Souls series, so today we'll explore the opposite end of the spectrum with some bosses I think get far more praise than they deserve. Of course this is all just a matter of subjective opinion, and mine is no superior or lesser to anyone else's. Midir is a good boss. He's grown on me in the years since I first fought him, but I don't think he's one of the best bosses in Dark Souls 3. I don't even think he's top 10 in that game. And best dragon boss in the series? I guess I can understand it, but over Caligo and Calamite? I do like Midir. He's an immense spectacle while still maintaining solid mechanics. The visuals and score of the fight are incredible, but those mechanics aren't perfect, and that's my primary issue with the fight. I just don't find these big sweeping attacks the most enjoyable to engage with. I've always preferred the dual style fights in this series over the big beast bosses, and Midir is very far detached from the format I enjoy most. Again, I do like this boss. I think it was a really good direction to take the dragon bosses in these games, and there's a lot of elements of Midir FromSoft can learn from going forward, but I just think he's praised far more highly than he deserves. There's a lot of better Dark Souls 3 bosses in my eyes. Often regarded as one of the best bosses in the second Dark Souls alongside Fume Knight and Sauron, I absolutely understand why people love the Ivory King, but I don't entirely agree. The second phase is great, definitely worthy of honours next to the game's best bosses, but the first phase drags the fight down. It's undeniably awesome, a great set piece, but mechanically it falls so flat. Fighting the Legion of Charred Knights solo is an absolute nightmare, but even with the aid of the White Lost Knights it doesn't get much better. Their attempts to help you are utterly pathetic. You still end up getting ganked by multiple enemies at a time, and should you ever die in this fight, should you not first try the second phase, you have to do it all again. It's just tedious, and ruins what should have been one of the series' landmark fights thanks to its poor execution. Unlike the rest of this list, nobody's saying Gravelord Nito is some generational banger of a boss. Most people agree he's poorly designed, but I've seen him escape the bottom 5 in so many Dark Souls boss rankings, and it's not on, I say, not on. Anything other than calling Nito one of the series' worst bosses is sacrilege. It's too high praise. I actually don't care. He's worse than Bed of Chaos. I'm standing my base. Nito absolutely sucks. Mandatory full damage, poorly telegraphed attacks, ranged attacks, ads mindlessly dumped in the arena, ads which respawn, ads which do everything in their power to gank you. Everything about this fight is terrible. I rarely get so heated in these videos, but Nito just enrages me. Godfrey is one of the most beloved bosses Elden Ring has to offer, and my placement of him was definitely one of the more controversial in my ranking. I like Godfrey, I think he's a solid fight, but I don't think he's anywhere close to as good as everyone praises him to be. If you want my thoughts in more detail, be sure to check out my Soulsborne boss ranking, but just know it's not that I think Godfrey is a bad boss, it's just that the majority of the community calls him one of the best in the game, and I vehemently disagree. I've seen many people praise Storm King as one of the best bosses in Demon Souls, highlighting it as a great boss for the immense spectacle of the encounter. I agree, the presentation's good, but it's nowhere close to the best in the series. It's been far outshined in recent years by many of the bosses in Elden Ring and Night Rain, and the combat of the fight is just really poor. It's just sitting there spamming the same move over and over, waiting for the boss to appear and pass by so you can hit it a couple of times before it flies off. And the King of Storms doesn't have any attacks that can actually threaten you. You just stand behind the level geometry and wait. It's so unfathomably dull. No level of great presentation can make up for a fight being that boring. Logarius is often regarded as one of Bloodborne's redeeming bosses in the mediocre mid-game, and I don't disagree. He's one of the better fights in the roster, but I've seen him compared to the likes of Ludwig, Maria, Orphan, Gascoigne, and I don't agree whatsoever. He's nowhere near as good as Bloodborne's finest. He's a decent fight, very similar in quality to Godfrey and Burnt Ivory King in my eyes, but I don't think he's some excellent boss that deserves to be seen as one of the best in FromSoft's roster. He's just decent. Owl is a boss most people like. He's not usually regarded as one of Sekiro's best, but the majority of fans do think it's a good fight. I disagree. I don't think it compares to the likes of Bed of Chaos or Royal Rat Authority, and it's not the worst boss in Sekiro. That title goes to the Headless Ape duo, but I do consider it one of the weaker fights in the game. Again, if you want more detail, check out my Soulsborne boss ranking. I explain my issues with the fight there, but yeah, it's not an encounter I particularly enjoy, contrary to the masses. With the top 3 we get to the most controversial placements on this controversial list. Placiduous Axe is beloved by fans, heralded as one of the greatest dragon fights in the series. I strongly disagree. I think he's barely an average boss, held up by the great spectacle of the encounter. That's a point I agree with the rest of you on, but mechanically this fight is just poor. It's primarily just AoEs that force you to back away, then run back in and hit the boss a few times, then repeat this cycle for the entire fight. Sometimes you'll have to engage with a bombastic attack like the lasers or teleporting, but aside from said teleporting and the melee claw swipes, I don't find any of Placiduous Axe's attacks enjoyable to engage with. Mechanics are by far the most important part of a boss fight to me, and this dragon's are just a letdown. Bale may have been my most contentious placement in my Souls boss ranking, being placed in the bad tier. Many of my viewers did not like that take, but that's just where I stand. Bale is loved by the same people who love Prestigious Axe, and he's praised for many of the same qualities. But once again, Great Spectacle won't make me love a boss if the mechanics aren't equally incredible, and Bale's mechanics take everything I don't look for in a boss, being a big beast fight with a janky camera, questionable hitboxes, and dodgy telegraphs. Once again, I don't enjoy engaging with his moves. To Bale's credit, the one where he flies around the arena is actually pretty good, but that's really the only one. Spectacle doesn't save a boss for me, and when I don't like Bale's mechanics, that leads to a fight I really just can't get behind. People were unhappy about my thoughts on this boss in the Elden Ring ranking, they were unhappy about his placement in the full series boss ranking, they were unhappy in my final boss ranking. People simply love Radagon. Evidently I don't count as people, because I really don't like this boss. The phenomenal presentation of the encounter brings him out of the bad tiers and lands him a standing as a mediocre boss, but the mechanics of the fight just completely let it down. Again, I've gone into detail on this in the past, but the biggest issues all revolve around the teleporting. I just don't find him engaging to combat, and as I've expressed in this video, mechanics will always be paramount in a boss fight for me, so given I don't like this boss, and given he's one of the community's favourites, I think he definitely deserves the top spot on this list. Well, I usually say I hope you enjoyed this video, but I know I'll have annoyed everyone with my hot takes, so I best not even bother. What I will ask is that you remember that this is an inherently subjective medium, that this is simply my opinion, and with a video like this, it's obviously going to be vastly different to yours. I respect opinions that differ from my own. This video isn't intended to criticise anyone who does hold the popular opinion. It's just interesting to express where mine aren't aligned with that. Hopefully I've at least given you something slightly interesting to watch while you stuff your face with that Big Mac. What's that? Yeah, I've caught you, haven't I? You big fat person. Lots of weight Lardo, horizontal Hubert, laterally challenged Larry, x-axis Xavier, rotund Roderick, spherical Spencer. Man alive, I'm losing viewers for that.